Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our weekly coffee chat on this Tuesday, April 7th. I have already had plenty of coffee today and need no more, so I'm just going to stick with water for the time being. But hopefully, you're able to take some time off during your week right now and just spend some time here learning today about resumes will be our topic, just some general tips, and we'll go through that in a bit. I hope you're all doing well, and it is amazing that we're already in April, and it seems as if ever since spring break, this whole semester has started to fly by, and not being at home and those types of things. The days run together, it seems, at times. So hopefully you've been able to make that transition and are finally, now that we're in week three, kind of in a starting to get into some sort of process or routine or groove of completing your work and getting into a new process. I know this is all a new way of learning and new way of organizing your time and new way of organizing and planning out your weeks and what you're doing and that type of thing. I know that's been a big change for a lot of us, especially for you all. And so I hope that that has been going well and that you were able to, especially if you live in Ohio. It was pretty nice in most areas, I think, this weekend. So hopefully you're able to get some fresh air and stay distant, but clear your mind a little bit, as nice as it was on Saturday. So hopefully you're doing well, and keep checking in with these videos once a week, and hopefully it'll be good to connect. So today we're going to talk about resumes. For those of you who are in YU or 365 this semester and last semester, this is going to be kind of repeat information. I use similar resources whenever I present on this topic. So maybe this will just be a review for you if you would like. If not, come back on Thursday and we'll be talking about something different then. But mainly this will be for those of you who have not taken 365 yet, not done YU, freshmen, sophomores. Maybe you haven't really created a resume before. Maybe you have a resume that you created in high school and you're looking to start updating it and changing it around to be helpful for you for professional life. And we're going to talk about that. So I have a presentation that I'm going to show or share with you all that I think will be helpful in just giving you some groundwork or some, kind of like a framework for what you should do to build your resume. And to also let you know that we have many resources at Wittenberg to help you with this. You can reach out to Career Services, and they have resources on their website. I am also available for those of you who are business majors to review your resume, your cover letter, to help get you started. I have created and placed a lot of resources on both our department Moodle page and on our department web page under career preparation that you can take a look at and just go through and let me know. I mean, the example of the resume I'm going to show you today is there in Word form on the website and on Moodle, and as well as quick reference guides that I have posted on Moodle and on the website as well. So a lot of resources for you to take advantage of here at WIT, and hopefully you'll do so. I'm also available to review virtually your resume and cover letter after we're done today. If you would like to send over a document to me, I can review, add notes, and send it back to you. Typically, you would send or submit your resume to an employer or potential employer through a PDF file, but if you're going to send it to me to have it reviewed, I would request that you send it in a Word document. It's just easier that way for me to add comments and to track whatever changes I think you should make and to send it back over to you. So if you would, obviously submit it to employers in PDF format, submit it to me in Word format so I'm able to write on. Like always, I'm here to answer questions as well. So if you have questions during the video, please post them in the comments on Facebook or on YouTube, or send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I am able to do so. So let's get started. I'm going to pull up the presentation here and you should be able to see it on your screen. The whole point of today is to build an effective resume and to give you the groundwork for doing that. A lot of you have probably built resumes in high school or for scholarships or maybe a campus job, and not to say that those are too different from what you might do or submit to an employer. I think there are some key differentiators between what most people would think is relevant for a scholarship application or something like that, as opposed to a professional resume. So we're going to talk about that. It's important for you to know that resumes, how they're created, how they're structured, and how you put them together. It's important because, one, when recruiters take a look at your resume, they're going to scan it for a few seconds and they need to be able to quickly pull out what information it is you want them to see. And when you upload it to job boards or to online job applications that companies or employers might be using, that is that software oftentimes has some automation built into it where it scans your resume and pulls out things and tries to match keywords and things in your application materials with the job description that pull up a bunch of different ways that these career, HR programs that companies often do job applications through. They offer suggestions and rate applicants automatically based on the software's own scanning and review of your documents before even any human actually ever sees it. So it's important to have a document that is clear to the eye and clear to the software computer programming that the company might be using. So we're going to talk about just some ways to make that work for you. I use the word intentional to begin every discussion on resume building because I think this is one of the main points of contrast between what people usually think of as a resume for a scholarship or something, maybe you did in high school, and what a professional company or a job at a firm might be looking for. It's typical for us to, when we think of creating our resume, to think of it as a list of everything that we've ever done. But that's not really the case. The resume is not simply a list of everything that you've done in your life. You have probably done a lot of amazing things in your life, and to list them all, it would take many pages. And really what you want to do for the resume is you want it to be a tailored document where you have selected key experiences that have given you, developed you and gave you specific applicable skills to the position that you're applying for. The resume is a big question. It's answering a question for the employer. You can think of your resume being the answer to the employer's question of, why should I hire you? It's your portfolio of you saying, these are the reasons that you should hire me because I've had these experiences that have given me these things. And it's always a document that's focused on the value that you bring to the employer. And so everything that you list and put on the resume should be intentional and include a purpose. So I always include this image and talk about this because everyone wants to, maybe last summer, before you came to Wittenberg, your summer job was you worked by walking dogs for, maybe 5 or 6 neighbors or people around you. That experience is fine to put on the resume if you can put it on your resume and draw experience and skills from it that you are going to show to an employer and say, this is why this experience should be important to you. You need to be doing the work of explaining, these are the things that have developed me, and this is why they are important for this position that I'm applying for. Your dog walking experience, if you just list it with no context or details, the recruiter and the employer may not make a connection with why that experience is really going to be valuable for them. But if you put that experience on your resume and you say, I've had to learn how to manage my time well to make sure that I'm able to walk, so many dogs at different times of the day and to make sure that they're all out. I've had to create a detailed schedule and I've developed skills and organization through having to organize these schedules with multiple clients that I walk their animals and making sure I was doing it within their time frames, and also, managing my own time and budgeting my own bandwidth of walking these animals at the same time. Those are the types of things you need to be thinking of for those experiences. Communication. I had to learn how to communicate with the clients and the people that I was, working with and walking their animals. Like, those are the type of skills and ways you want to think about those experiences that you're putting on your resume to make them more valuable to an employer. Simply saying that you walk dogs for a summer isn't really providing as much value as saying, I walk dogs for the summer. Here is why, it matters. And we'll show you how to kind of list some of that or describe that on the resume in the following sections. I just say this I start here to say, if your resume right now just looks like a long list of everything that you've done, it's probably good that you start thinking about what are your key experiences that you really want to highlight so that you can hone in on a few things that you want to point out and make stand out to a recruiter rather than giving them a long list and hoping they find something in there that's valuable to them. Again, all your experience is great, but you need to tailor your resume and what you provide to a recruiter based on what you think is going to make provide you the best value for them. This is just a general resume example that we have used in the department in the past. I personally love this template just because it's easy, it's clean, and you can tell that everything is separated. Everything looks separated. Things look formatted the same way. And if I'm a recruiter, I can look right down the page and say, oh, well, what's really important for me is how long you've worked at each position. I know exactly where that is. It's on the right-hand side. I can quickly see it. I'm looking for, specific types of positions. I know where all the position titles are. I can quickly go through the resume and find them. This is a clean cut resume that I think is easy for a recruiter and for, a resume scanner to go through and to quickly pull out information without having to take much effort to find it. And again, you don't want the recruiter to be searching for info. You want them to see it right off the bat and be able to tell where they should be looking at in your resume for that info. Let me move my video here. So just some best practices for the resume in general. A format is, not something you should, be stressing over finding the perfect one. It doesn't mean you have to go find some really creative template. But you do need to have a standard practice of organizing your information. It can't just be, you're typing in a Word doc, hit enter, typing in a Word doc, hit enter. It's got to be some sort of standardized way where you can, organize your experience and information in a way that makes sense and in a way that follows a general resume format as well. So templates are helpful to use. And in fact, the example that I just showed you on the previous page is the template that we provide to students in the business department. But you don't have to use some sort of creative, graphically enhanced template that you find on Word or Canva or online somewhere. And a special note about that is that some industries don't even like seeing those graphically enhanced templates. If you're in marketing or a creative field, then those templates are probably good. But if you're going into banking or finance or accounting or some of these traditional companies, they're probably not going to care. They care more about the substance that you're providing on the resume than necessarily that you have all these cool graphics going on. And oftentimes those graphically enhanced templates that you're going to find online are going to take up so much room and blank space that you're not going to be able to put a lot of content on there because they're really going to limit that based on how the template's created. So I would suggest finding a plain format template, kind of like this one that we're using. There's not many graphically enhanced elements and it looks clean. But I would find something like that to use for your resume. Consistency is also important. Things should match in size, font, and style on the resume. All company and organization names should be in the same place with the same font, with the same styles and the same font size. I should be able to look down the page and see that the location of each of your positions is formatted the same way and in the same spot on the resume page. I shouldn't have to look all over the resume to try to figure out where something is. I should be able to tell that because you formatted it in such a way where like things are placed in some sort of place on the resume and it's consistent throughout. And alignment falls into this as well. Like things should be, aligned. If you have locations and time periods on the center of the page, then they always should be on the center of the page. You shouldn't have some in the center, some on the right, some in the left. Some split up. Like it should always be aligned and formatted in a consistent way. You can tell with this example that everything, the dates, the time, the dates and the places, they're all formatted the same way. The places are bold, the dates are not, and I have them all aligned to the right hand side of the page from top to bottom. I know where I need to look if I'm looking for a date or location. Same thing for the position in the company, the title in the company, it's on the left hand side. So those are the types of things you need to be thinking about as you're building the resume. The order of your experiences in those different sections, they typically are ordered by newest first and then oldest last. Uh, your career is going to end up having a trajectory at some point, maybe where you're starting in a lower position and you're slowly advancing yourself throughout your career. And so the newest experience probably should be the most relevant. I understand, though, some circumstances for many of you may mean that you did an internship last summer that's more relevant than your on campus job, which you're doing this year. And so, while order is typically newest first, sometimes people would want to put things that are more relevant first. That's a personal choice. I would suggest keeping the order newest first. But if you think that you're going to get more value by showing off your more relevant experiences before some of those lesser experiences, not lesser experiences, but some of those experiences that are not as directly applicable to what you're applying for, then maybe that would be fine. But think about the order and just make sure that you're being consistent with that. The focus of the resume, I mentioned this earlier, it should always be on what skills, value, and experience do you bring the company that you're applying for. You're not telling them everything you want to get out of the experience. Granted, you're applying for an internship or a job, you want some initial experience, you want to develop yourself, and it's important to show that you're willing to learn. Like, that's a good thing to show, but only writing your resume and cover letter from the terms of what you want to get or take from the experience is not going to be as it's not going to be looked as highly upon by a recruiter or a manager or someone hiring as what you're bringing to them. So you want to focus your resume first and foremost on what makes you unique and what gives you something that they can benefit from. Obviously it's a two-way street, but you're trying to sell yourself to the employer and they're trying to think, are you the best fit for the work that they need to get done? Employers want to help grow and develop you, but they also want to know, can you do the work that they expect? Or are you willing to learn about it, or to learn and to work your way into that role? And then your resume should be tailored. The bullet points and the description, everything that you're including on your resume should be tailored to whatever the job is asking for. I always tell students to print out the job application and read it through a couple of times and highlight keywords that pop up over and over again in the resume. If they're looking for someone with great interpersonal and communication skills and it's mentioned 6 times in the resume, there's a good chance you should try to incorporate that in your resume bullet points. Where in the experiences that you've had in the past have you developed interpersonal skills and the ability to communicate with others? So that's an important thing for you to think about, is that a resume shouldn't be a static document that is only created once and then just papered around to all the applications you're applying for. You should really try to change up and modify those bullet points and the experiences that you're highlighting as you're applying for different types of jobs. Generally, if you're applying for 6 positions in the same field and they're kind of, similar positions, likely they're going to be looking for similar characteristics, and it may take less work than at other times, but keep in mind that you want to make sure that your resume speaks to the position that you're applying for. I get a lot of questions about length of resume, or for the resume. And, the traditional rule has been that for new grads, 1 to 5, anywhere between 1 to 5 years in their career, resume you should be able to summarize your experience in 1 page. There's a lot of new, studies that have been done, and companies that have come out and said, we really just want you to provide valuable information to us. We don't care if it's more than 1 page, but I would still I would still say that many companies do expect one-page resumes from people who are graduating college and who are, going into the workforce. You kind of have to judge, the experience that you're providing on your resume. If you're just spilling over by a couple lines onto a second page, you should probably be able to get that to one page. If you have a lot of content spilling over onto a second page, you need to ask yourself, is this content valuable? Is there a reason I'm making someone go to the second page of my resume? When they get here, are they finding something useful to them? And if not, maybe you want to figure out a way to consolidate some of that information. Again, I don't want to make this a hard, fast rule because a lot of companies and organizations are changing their view about this. But you should always be asking yourself the questions of, is this still valuable? Is this still helpful for, for whoever's reading this? Grammar, don't rely on spell check. It's not always right. And it doesn't catch errors where you actually include a word that's an actual word, but it's just not the right one that you're wanting to use. A lot of people are like, well, I reread my cover letter or resume and I did it. I ran it through spell check and it didn't give me, it didn't give me any errors. And it was because they wrote two as TOO instead of two as the number two, TWO. And they're both words, but neither spell check or, they quickly caught it as they were reading through. So make sure you don't rely on spell check. Use grammar. Use good grammar in your cover letter and resume, and ask other people to read it for you if you need just a new set of eyes on it. Or I learned this from Dr. Madison. Read it from the bottom up. Don't read it as in a narrative where you start at the beginning of a paragraph and go to the end, but read your resume from the last sentence up to the top. So it doesn't flow, so you don't have that natural flow that allows you to miss mistakes that you've made. I like that recommendation. Dr. Madison provided that to one of our groups of cable students last year. I think it's just a helpful way to proofread. And then bullet points. Each experience should include bullet points that show you what skills you developed, tasks that you were engaged in, and the results and accomplishments that you made. The bullet points are not just showing what you did. Don't write bullet points that just say, I worked with customers and answered phone calls. That is great experience, and you want to include that in the bullet point, but you want to have the bullet points need to have two things: what you did, the description, and what you got out of it, what you brought away from it. People often only write the description, what they did, but they don't show the impact, the results, what they got out of it. And I understand that if you haven't had many positions yet, or you haven't had much, direct experience, you may not have a lot of numbers or impact statements that you can put in your bullet points, which is where you want to show the development of things like soft skills that are related to every position. Being able to be, a good communicator, manage your time, organized. You have, good interpersonal skills. You're good at trying to show, willingness to learn, or providing valuable feedback in meetings. Things like that are what you want to show in these bullet points. So, you interacting with customers and you took phone calls. Well, that means you gained, skills in interpersonal communication. And that's what you need to say. Developed ability, or developed excellent skills in interpersonal communication through answering phone calls of customers and working with customers in the store. It's an example of a bullet point. You want to rewrite it and put it in maybe better language than that for your resume. But that's just showing you that you need to include not only the task that you did, but what you got out of that task, whether it be development of a skill or, an impact of some sort. Contact info, you want to put this at the top. Get a professional email outside of WIT and use that. Your WIT email is not going to be with you forever. and you don't want some weird sounding email address for your resume. So it needs to be something professional. And I say that something other than your win email, because eventually that email is going to go away. But your resume may still, companies are starting to store and save resumes now for a year or two. If they don't have a position that they want to hire you for now, but they're interested in you as a candidate, maybe they save your resume and reach out to you in 6 months or a year when they do have a position. And so you don't want to be giving them an email that you're not going to have forever. So make sure you're using some sort of email outside of what you would at Wittenberg. And then addresses, to put the most relevant address for yourself that you have. If you live in Colorado and you're just going to school in Witt, don't put your Fountain or Ward, Wittenberg Avenue, Keller apartment, whatever address. You want to put an address for home back in Colorado, so that companies that you're applying to in Colorado know, oh, you're from there. They're not going to have to pay to relocate you. It's a relevant address. You actually live in Colorado. You just are studying in Ohio. Put the address that makes the most sense for where you want to be. I'll briefly touch on these. Again, use numbers and outcomes, results, quantify what you've done if you're able to do so. Numbers, money, how much of a budget did you manage for that student club at Wittenberg, et cetera. Those are important things to keep on your resume. And that's also important to know, so that when you start your first internship or your first job, you're thinking about, what are things in this experience that I can quantify for my work, so that I have something to add to my resume. It's good to be thinking about that before you start a position, because once you get into an internship position, sometimes people don't think about it and they leave and they're like, oh, well, I didn't track anything while I was working. I just did the work I was asked. But so when you're starting a job or an internship, think about what are some things you can quantify, so that you show some results on your resume. And then again, actually, I haven't mentioned this yet. Bullet points should always begin with a past tense verb. For positions you no longer work at. I always suggest everything should just be in past tense. You're showing, even though you're still doing some things and still working at some organizations, I always say, you're showing what you have done. You're showing what you've already completed, the work you've done already. And so it's just best and easy for you to remember to just write everything in past tense, but definitely begin each bullet point with a past tense action verb that draws the reader's attention in. And then just some language recommendations. We try to limit the use of articles like the, a, and if we can. Not I created the t-shirt, but created t-shirt for. Sometimes it's difficult to do this, depending on what type of, sentence you're writing for a bullet point, but we try to limit them if we can. It's not necessarily wrong if you don't. It just sounds more professional when they're not present, even though sometimes they're necessary. But we definitely do not use pronouns like I, he, she, they, etc. Me, my, like those are types of things that I see on resumes all the time, and you want to get rid of them. Don't say I display leadership, but just display leadership. So don't use pronouns. Pronouns are fine in the cover letter, but in the resume we try to get rid of them. All your English teachers have probably taught you, when writing academic papers, to spell out numbers, until you get to 10 or something like that. I forget what the threshold is. But for your resume, it's better to actually just write the number in number form rather than spelling it out. One, it takes less room, and two, it's easier for recruiters to quickly scan over a resume and to lock in and latch in on numbers than it is for them to do that with words. And so still hold the number rule for all your papers and academic work, but on the resume, make sure you're actually writing in number form. And again, always try to put yourself in the recruiter's shoes and ask, what would they want to see when hiring someone? And am I providing them with that information? Generally, when we get to you writing your college resume, we'll start to have you at least take your high school off of the education section, and then experiences in high school, teams you played on, things like that, clubs you were involved in, that stuff starts falling off too. But I say that as a progressive thing. So as you progress through college and are becoming more involved in things at college and getting positions on campus and getting internships in the summer, you slowly start to remove some of that stuff from high school, unless there's really unless you think it's providing you a valuable experience that you want to keep on there. We definitely take off high school as an academic piece on there because it's just a given when you're in college that you've graduated from high school. And so it takes up a lot of room to put it on there, and it's kind of, it doesn't really add much value for someone to know you graduated from high school because it's given with your college experience. So most of the time we'll ask you to take that off unless there's a reason, unless you have a specific reason for keeping it. And sports clubs and other university activities can be helpful and included as long as you draw experience from them. Again, don't list your fraternity unless you want to draw experience of leadership and a position you managed and a budget you managed. Like, unless you want to talk about that experience, it may not be helpful to just list it. So you can use university clubs and activities, especially if you've held leadership positions. Sports you've played on are good to show ability to work on a team and work together as a group, ability to, manage your time and manage responsibilities and schedule and that type of thing. But you've got to show this on your resume. Again, you don't just want to list all of these things and leave it at that. Watch using colloquial language, terms that only company employees or Wittenberg students would know. We have a lot of acronyms. Don't use those as well. No one knows what cable, SAC, or GDSA, or any, spell them out. Don't use the acronyms, but spell them out if you can. We have a large soup of language. We could probably write our own dictionary at WIT with all the stuff we say. But don't act like you're just speaking to a friend when you're writing your resume, and don't use acronyms that no one else would understand. The GPA rule is, I could be swayed either way on this. A lot of times people say if you have a GPA that have 3.5 or above, definitely listed on your resume. If it's lower, you decide how helpful it is or if it will be required. Some companies are going to ask that you put your GPA because they have a threshold or limit, and if they ask, you got to put it. Others of you may be asking, well, I kind of had a bad first semester. I'm slowly working to build my GPA. It's only a 3.1 right now. Should I put it? My answer to that is always, well, unless the company is specifically asked, you don't necessarily have to list it. Unless you think it's going to be helpful for you. And so that's kind of a personal decision. I always say if it's a 3.5, list it. That's a great, 3 is really, fine for, a college GPA at some points. But, a 3.5 in the college level is, a pretty good, standard that you're paying attention to your work and doing well. You kind of have to find your own personal balance for this. If a company is going to open up an internship and limit you based on a GPA, it's probably going to be a 3.0. And so some people just use that as the threshold, 3.0 or above, list it. But I kind of like leaving it at 3.5 because that gives you a little more wiggle room if you'd rather them focus on other aspects about your experience than them being turned off from seeing a GPA number right at the beginning. So think about that, read the job description, know what the company wants, and can follow that. But when you're mentioning GPA, always mention whether your GPA is cumulative or whether it's a major GPA. Some companies, especially accounting firms, are going to want to know what is your accounting specific GPA. They want to know, like, maybe you have a fine overall GPA, but especially at a university like Wittenberg, where you're studying so many different things, you could have made up for a bad accounting GPA with a lot of other general education requirements and some of the other classes you've taken in the liberal arts environment. So some companies are starting to ask for major specific GPAs as opposed to just an overall one. So make sure you know that. Again, we talked about be intentional. And I talked a little bit about making sure that you always save in a PDF format. The one thing I'll add here is when you're saving in a PDF format, make sure you're using some sort of simple name for the file. Don't have like John Smith resume 3.5 revised number 2, notes by, make it simple so that when you're submitting it, if someone has to save it, it's not kind of a weird file name that they have on their computer. I'm going to talk really quickly about the resume objective. It's not everyone's resume has this, and it's fine. It's usually called an objective, a summary, a career statement, whatever. It's at the top of the resume usually. And a lot of people like writing a paragraph here, and I discourage writing a paragraph because that you write paragraphs in your cover letter, but what you don't want to do at the beginning of a resume, a document that needs to be scanned and skimmed quickly by recruiters and people at a company, you don't want to start them off with a dense paragraph that's like 8 or 9 sentences long and is just cumbersome to get through. Really, at the beginning of your resume, if you're going to put an objective, it's a quick 1 to 2 sentence statement that tells 3 things. One, it tells you who you are. It tells you what you bring, the skills and experiences that you're bringing to the company, and it tells them what you're seeking. Do you want the summer internship? Is that what you're applying for? Are you looking to work there full time? Like, what does that look like? My example here is lifelong learner that brings experience in budgeting, leadership, strategic planning while looking to leverage these skills as a business analyst at Starbucks Inc. It tells who I am, a lifelong learner. It's telling what I'm bringing of value to the company, my experience in budgeting, leadership, and planning. And it is saying what I'm applying for. And so that's really a quick statement. You can make it general if you're not using it for a specific company or you're using it for a career fair or something like that. But it's a quick statement that allows you to just tell those things without providing some big long paragraph that most of the time is probably not going to get read anyway. All right. Well, again, the resume objective is not going to be on every resume. You may see it, you may not. I want to go back really quick as we close to just show you the resume template again. So you will see on this template that, I'll zoom in here so that it's easy for you all to see. At the top, we have Wally Witt, all of his contact information and location information. The education section usually comes first. Talks about what your majors are, location, when do you expect to graduate, list GPA, but it says cumulative, remember that. You can also list your honors up here. If you just want to put the awards you've received or the honor societies you're in, you can list them really quickly without taking up too much space. And you're listing them with Wittenberg because they're awards you've gotten along with your academic experience at the university. Then we go into work experience. This is paid experience that you've gotten paid for, positions, internships that you've had, things like that. You can see we're using numbers and percentages to show impact in this. And then we have university experience. This could be called leadership experience or community involvement, something like that. But this is a section that displays all the extracurricular things that you may have leadership positions in or roles where you want to draw experience from them that could be helpful in a professional setting in the future. So this is an extra section that will probably fall off after it will probably be changed from university experience to like community involvement or something like that once you're graduating and maybe volunteering or working in local organizations or something. But this is an experience for non-paid volunteer, service type of work. And at the bottom, we have a achievements and skills section. You can list extra honors down there that aren't listed with your education. If you want to list, like some volunteer service, you can do that. And then languages, certifications, things like that can go down here. I always recommend not just listing a bunch of skills at the bottom. It's best to put your skills in the context of the experiences in your bullet point rather than just listing them at the bottom. It'll make your skills look much more realistic and viable for you when you show them with examples in the context of your experience. Okay, so there's a quick reference guide posted on Moodle and on the department website. I may post a link to it as well in the Facebook posting to this. Please take a look at that and get started on a resume or a cover letter, or well, start on your resume, and we can talk about cover letters later as well. Um, and we can go from there. I think if you want to send me your resume, your cover letter, or whatever you want to do, an email you're writing to an employer or something like that, and you just want me to take a look and read it and see if I have any thoughts or edits that I think you should do, please do so. I'll respond via email to that as well. Well, today is probably the longest coffee chat we've had, or coffee break, and hopefully you're doing fine. We probably won't have many that are this long. So if this is your first time watching, I promise, usually they're only 25, 30 minutes. So we'll be back on Thursday with another round. Good luck to all of you who are doing YU interviews today and on Thursday as well, and to those of you who are already complete and having done them last Tuesday. So again, hope you're all doing well. Please let me know how I can best assist you in this time of transition, and take care.